Okay, good evening, everybody. It's Wednesday night. Tonight's class, you didn't join yet, but tonight's class is sponsored by Yehudis Greenberg for her father's yahrzeit, Rabbi Chil Issa ben Tuvia, whose yahrzeit is Hey Kislev, which is this Friday. So Nisham should have an aliyah, and he should be a good advocate for the family. Okay, last time in halacha we were learning that the Chacham have an expression that there's a small phrase in the Torah which is the whole basis of the whole Torah, basically. And that is that it said, "B'chol derachecha da'ehu." In all your ways, you're supposed to know Hashem, which means not only when you do a mitzvah, do you know Hashem, but no matter what you do, if you're doing eating, it should be done serving Hashem. He's going to go into the details in each one of these aspects. But there's a general rule. Whatever a person does, he should do in the reason and the purpose of serving Hashem. And as the Rebbe explained many times, that when you do that, that in a certain respect is even greater than a mitzvah. A mitzvah, you're making holy what Hashem told you to make holy. Here, a Jew is taking it a step further, that even something that the Torah is not telling me to make holy, and I'm making it holy, that's even a greater accomplishment, because we're taking even something more mundane and making that holy. In fact, in Tanya, the Rebbe says that when a person eats properly with a bracha, and we'll soon learn the details of that, the Rebbe in Tanya uses the expression, it's as if they brought a burnt offering korban, not only a regular korban, a sacrifice, which is eaten by different people. It's a burnt offering, which is the holiest type of a sacrifice. And the Rebbe says in Tanya that a person that eats properly, and again, we'll discuss in a few minutes what that means, that's actually elevating exactly as if it would be a sacrifice, which is the holiest type of thing possible. There's an issue that they discuss now that I don't know how it gets here, but it's an interesting concept that the Rebbe spoke about. There's a whole discussion in halacha about Jews making birthday parties, celebrating a birthday. By the way, years ago, like when we were growing up in our circles, which were from circles, Jewish people didn't make birthday parties. It was like a Goyish thing to do. It was a non-Jewish thing to do. So Jews, they basically did not make birthday parties. It was after the Rebbe Chaim Mushke passed away, the Rebbe came out with a campaign, interestingly, for people to celebrate birthdays. And the Rebbe gave out a whole list of customs, getting aliyah before and a day to add in learning, reveal Torah, hidden Torah, give extra tzedakah. I mean, there's a whole list of things that the Rebbe gave. And the Rebbe utilized the birthday for people to get together with their friends. Torah should be spoken, good resolutions should be made. And there are sources in the Torah, by the way. The first birthday mentioned in Chumash was when the butler and the baker had their dream, about the bread and the fly and the fly and the wine and the stone and the bread. And it says on the third day, exactly like they prophesied, so to speak, it was the birthday party of Pari. And Torah speaks about it. So even though, it was Pari's birthday party, but Torah mentions that he had Yom Haledes' party and he made a party. So and then the Gemara says also, it's a very interesting Gemara. The Gemara says when the great sage Rabbi Yosef, from the era of the Gemara, one of the greatest sages, when he turned 60, he made a big party for the Chachamim, for his colleagues, for the rabbis. And he said, what was the purpose of the party? Because we know there's something called Kodesh. For certain Avedas, you get the punishment of Kodesh. Now, Kodesh is the argument. There's what's called Kodesh, where Hashem kills you young, and there's Misa B'dei Shemayim, means the heavenly court kills you. One is 50, one is 60. There's an argument between Bavli Gemara and Yerushalmi Gemara, which one's which? Whether Kodesh is 50 and Misa 60, or Misa is 50 and Kodesh is 60. Usually in the world is accepted that 60 is Kodesh. That means in the time of the Bais Din or very great tzaddikim, if they lived through the age of 60, then they made a very great party to the Chachamim. Why? Because they said we're out of the chorus realm. So even though the Alter Rebbe explains in Tanya, nowadays it doesn't apply because we don't live in Kedusha anyway, but they read like Rabbi Yosef would made a birthday party when he turned 60 because he knew that he lived from Kedusha. There's a whole story where the Rebbe proves, and many tzaddikim, when the great tzaddikim, the Rebbe, when he turned 60, had a special farbrengen that wasn't common in those days. And they would camouflage it by making a siyum ending a tractate of Gemara, so that was an excuse for the party. But one thing is a given, by the way, and that is that the whole concept of candles on a birthday cake, and definitely blowing out candles on a birthday cake, the codifier is right that is a Goyish custom. It's rooted in Greek Avodah Zarah. So I'm just saying, there's nothing wrong having a birthday cake. In fact, I can tell you a story with the Rebbe. My uncle, Rabbi Krinsky, was the Rebbe's driver. He took him a lot to the oil. And he had a birthday. I'm not going to say which. It was coming up soon. And it was on the 15th day of the month. And the Rebbe would go to the oil every time, Erev Rosh Chodesh and the 15th day of the month. Doesn't Kabbalah, those are the two times to go to graves of tzaddikim. And the Rebbe would go, in later years, the Rebbe went much more often. But the Rebbe used to go always, twice a month, Erev Rosh Chodesh and the 15th. And the 15th of that month, when my uncle took the Rebbe to the oil, and the Rebbe came back from the oil, and he smiled at him, and he said, in Yiddish, he said, today's your birthday. I imagine that they have a birthday cake waiting for you at home. That's what the Rebbe told him. Now, they never dreamt of a birthday cake, never had a birthday cake. So what happened was he went home and his wife baked him a cake. And from that time on, every year on his birthday, he has a birthday cake because the Rebbe told him, Mistamid, there's a birthday cake waiting for you. So a birthday cake is not an issue. The issue is, according to many opinions, having candles on a birthday cake, that might be a question of Avodah Zarah, idol worshipping. It's definitely not a Jewish custom. By the way, Yehudis was not on before, so I want to say I mentioned it before. Today's class is sponsored by Yehudis Greenberg for her father's yahrzeit, Rabbi Chil Issa ben Tuvia, whose yahrzeit is this Friday, Hey Kislev, and the Sham should have an aliyah and be good to better. We mentioned it before, she wasn't on, so I'm mentioning it again. Okay, let's get back here. So the halacha is, and this is what the Rambam writes, by the way, that everything a person does should be done l'shem shemayim. Okay, the pasuk says, "Kol masecha l'shem shemayim." All your actions should be for the sake of God. It doesn't say all your mitzvahs. Kol ma'asecha, meaning things that you do, your actions. Or the pasuk says, "Kol b'chol derechecha da'eu." In all your ways, you should know Hashem. Which means whatever a person does, basically, they are serving Hashem. And this, by the way, I mean, it's halacha, but explain it flavor it with a little bit of chassidus. The person's whole goal is to serve Hashem, make the world holy. That's the person's goal. Religion, and this is the uniqueness of Yiddishkeit. In most other religions, or even people that don't know chassidus will maybe have that approach, that, when you go lahavdil, you go to church, that's where you have religion. Or people think, lahavdil, you go to shul, that's where you have religion. When you're davening, you're learning, that's your religiosity, that's the way you're connecting to Hashem. Torah doesn't say that. The Rambam doesn't say that. The Rambam says serving Hashem is 24/7. It's not when you go to shul are you serving Hashem. In fact, there's a remarkable statistic, so to speak. Most of the day, even if a man is not in shul, okay, a Jew is a Jew 24/7. How long are you doing shul? An hour in the morning, maybe a half an hour at night. I mean, it's an hour and a half, 2 hours tops. But that's not the majority of the day. It's not that we serve Hashem when we're in a shul environment or yeshiva environment, then we're serving Hashem. The point is, whatever a Jew does, they're serving Hashem. And he says like this is all again from the Rambam, basically, that what does it mean eating and drinking? He says it's self-understood, you're not allowed to eat non-kosher things. And generally, let me say this is a halachic issue again, with a little flavor of siddur. There's a very big question people should ask themselves when it comes to eating food. I'm talking about kashrus. Is everything kosher until proven treif, or is everything treif until proven kosher? In other words, the proper attitude of a Jew should be, and is, that until I know 100% it's kosher, I'm not going to eat it. Maybe it's kosher, yes, is it kosher? Is it treif? Yeah, that's wonderful. But the reality is, a Jew's approach to eating and drinking in a simple form has to be, everything is treif until proven kosher. When I know it's 100% kosher, then I can eat it. That's the Jewish approach to that type of lifestyle. So he said it's a given not to eat non-kosher food. He says even permissible food, yeah, you should eat it properly. You should eat it to serve Hashem. You shouldn't just eat it because it tastes good. I'm not saying you should not eat food that doesn't taste good. We're not on that level. But he said you don't eat food because the previous Rebbe said, the Frierdiker Rebbe said, from the time he was a little boy, in his house, by the Rebbe Rashab's house, and his mother, the Rebbe Tzimshterner, they taught him, what you are served is what you eat. Today, many kids, the parents make dinner, the mother makes dinner, whatever it is. No, I don't want this. Okay, so it's a restaurant. You order what you want. That's besides the fact in chinuch, it's not a good thing. But even in the Yiddishkeit aspect of it, people should know you eat because you need to be healthy. We don't eat because, like we said many times, you eat to live, you don't live to eat. So even children should be taught, this is what you serve, this is what you eat. Next time we'll make you something that you like, maybe. But so a person should eat because he needs to be healthy. He should eat healthy food. Kitzur brings down, there are people used to say before they went to eat, they said, I'm eating only to be healthy. Okay, we don't do that. But the attitude should be that the reason why we eat and drink and sleep and do all that is to be able to serve Hashem. He says, what does it mean sitting and standing, for instance, going? The first pasuk of Tillim says, Ashrei Ohish, Ashrei Holach, Batzasav Shoyim, Uvederech HaToim Le'omad, V'meshiv Leitzim Le'yosef. Fortunate is a person that doesn't go with the counsel of evil people, and he doesn't stand in the presence of sinners, and he doesn't sit in the company of scoffers. So he says, in Kid Rambam brings this down, you shouldn't sit where sinners are, and you shouldn't sit where the scoffers are, and you shouldn't listen to people that are not proper people. And he says you're supposed to sit. In fact, it says the Mishnah. It says in Pirkei Avos, you should become dusty with the dust of the feet. So the commentators explain what does that mean. You become with the scholars. You should become dusty with the dust of the feet of the scholars. That means, don't forget, they didn't have sidewalks, they paved roads in those days. The Mishnah is saying you're hanging around tzaddikim, you get dusty. They're walking, you're getting they're kicking up dust. So it means a person should hang around proper people, proper friends. In fact, the Rambam himself brings down that a person, we learned this before, that if a person is in a neighborhood of bad people, they should move away. It's very important that a person, speaks properly, does properly. It's very hard in a non-Jewish community. Yes, but again, if a person is there to influence others rather than be influenced, then he could be there. If a Jew is in a non-Jewish community, they can teach them the 7 Noahic laws. A person should, if they're in an environment, the Rebbe taught us that the greatness of a person is they could be a leader, not a follower. So if you're in an environment where you can influence other people, that's great. Then you're accomplishing something. If you're in an environment where you are going to be the recipient, then halacha says you should move out. Okay, another din over here is like by sleeping. Okay, a person should not just sleep because they like to sleep. They should be even you should sleep because you have to rest to be able to serve Hashem better, and the person has to be healthy. And the same thing it says with marital relations. A person should do it because that's an obligation the Torah gives us to do, to have children. And by the way, even this is brought down even in halacha, by the way, that when couples are intimate, even though they're not going to be getting pregnant, so even a woman past menopause or a pregnant woman, so obviously she's not going to be getting pregnant. Nevertheless, it says in Kabbalah, but halacha brings us down, that you are creating spiritual entities up there. You're creating spiritual children, not physical children, but you're creating spiritual children up there, whatever that means, of entities in the spiritual realm. And the same thing, speaking, he says, talking, he says it's a given not to speak Lashon Hara, Rechilas, all the things we learned before, but a person should speak about intellectual things, about educational things, Torah things, speak in the words of the sages. In other words, a person should not waste time. A person should not be speaking foul language. They should not be speaking not nice language. They shouldn't be speaking things that are for no purpose. The Gemara says about the Rav in the Gemara that from his days, probably from when he was a little kid, he never spoke sichas chulin. Sichas chulin means just idle words, just mundane words, not bad words. His life is focused on talking intellectual things. Again, there's a lot of exceptions to this, by the way. Like spouses should just talk, even if it's not. So they need to communicate and talk, which is a very good thing to do. The next thing was when a person does business or working, whatever it may be, his intent should not be to make money. It should be to support his family, to give tzedakah, to raise his children, nowadays to pay tuition. And then he sums it up. But by the way, it's ironic. Many people, the purpose of making a living, just if you think from a logical perspective, and it's definitely a Torah perspective, when a person is making a living, the purpose of making a living is to raise a family, to have a family, to raise a family in the ways of Torah mitzvahs. So if a guy is going to be making money in a way he's never home, never sees his spouse, never sees his kids, so it's like, so what are you working for? The whole purpose of working is to be able to have a family raised according to what God wants, and then you don't see them anyway. So what's the purpose? It's a catch-22 situation in a negative way. So it shouldn't be done. People shouldn't do that. They should have their priorities straight and know who, what, when, where. That doesn't mean at the beginning you have to build a business. I understand. But again, like we said Monday night, the hands have to work, the head, the focus of the head should be in observance of Torah mitzvahs. So bottom line, he wraps it up and he says, a person should put his eyes in his heart and measure and weigh all his actions. There were chassidim, there were really rare chassidim, but they tell about a chassid. He says he was able to give a reckoning of every thought he had since bar mitzvah. That's already a lofty level, super lofty level. Stop a person in the street. We mentioned this many times. Stop a person in the street and say, excuse me, can you tell me what you thought during the last half an hour? Unless if they were concentrating on something, they will never be able to tell you what they were thinking. because the mind is all over the place. Do you know what it means to give a din, a reckoning on every thought you had since Bar Mitzvah? And as that you was in control of your thoughts, you knew what you were thinking, you know what you were saying. Okay, that's not on our level. It's a super great level. But there's a concept there that people should think properly, talk properly, act properly, all for the sake of serving Hashem. And like he says, Kol Masach Hashem Shemayim, and like he finishes this off with what the Gemara says in Ksubis. Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, who was the wealthiest man in his time, the Gemara says this, the stable boy, the guy who took care of the horses of Rebbe, was richer than Shvar Malka, who was the king of Persia at that time. Rebbe's stable boy was richer than the king of Persia. So you can imagine how wealthy Rebbe was. And yet, on his deathbed, like we said many times, you don't play games on your deathbed. Okay? Rebbe picked up his hands, and he said, he picked up his fingers, and he said, God, you know, it's revealed to you. I didn't benefit from this world, even a small finger's worth. What does that mean? He was a very wealthy man. He had every luxury possible. But everything Rebbe did was for the sake of serving Hashem. When Rebbe wanted to compile the Talmud, the Mishnah, not the Talmud, the Mishnah, because people were starting to forget the oral Torah, Rebbe gathered all the scholars in his time for a very extended period of time on his expense, and he compiled Mishnah. So yes, he had all the pleasures and the the delicacies of the world, but nevertheless, the Rabbi Nasi realized it was all for the sake of serving Hashem. Next siman over here is another interesting law in Kitzur, and that is to be healthy. To be healthy. The Rambam starts off a parak in Hilchos Deis. Hayes aguf body v'shalem midarke avedas Hashemhu. A person to be healthy is part of the way of serving Hashem. Sick people, God forbid, cannot serve Hashem. There's a pasuk in Chumash that says, "Ushmartem ma'od lenafshi secha." The Torah doesn't say watch your health. The Torah says, "Ushmartem ma'od lenafshi secha." You have to be extremely, extremely careful in your health, and is biblically forbidden. By the way, it's biblically forbidden for people to do unhealthy things. Not that nobody does it. I'm just saying it's biblically that there's a positive mitzvah in the Torah. You have to be healthy. They tell there was a great Rav that was very lenient when it came to people fasting on fast days. He was very lenient in people eating on fast days. So somebody came to him and asked him, "Why are you so lenient in fast days?" And he said to him, "I'm not lenient in fast days. I'm very strict in the mitzvah regarding your health." That was his perspective. Now, there's a lot of things, if you learn Rambam and Gemara, there's a lot of things that the Gemara says is healthy or unhealthy. And the codifier is right that those things applied in the time of the Gemara. I'll give you an example. The Rambam writes in Hilchos Deis, he gives you a whole diet. Okay? And when you learn it, it's not things we do today. What the Rambam says is unhealthy, doctors today say is healthy. And the Rambam says at the end, I promise you, if you keep my diet, you will never be sick a day in your life. But the Gemara, Poskim write, codifiers after the Rambam write, that those things were in the time of the Gemara, in the time when the Rambam lived. The bodies of a human being changed. The nature in the world changed. So just because Torah says this is healthy or unhealthy, in those days, does not necessarily mean, according to Torah, you have to listen to that today. I'll give you a simple example. We all know, and the Gemara and halacha talks about this. Nursing women, breastfeeding women never got pregnant. Today it's not true. Today women get pregnant. That doesn't mean Torah is wrong. In those days, for whatever reason it is, nursing women didn't get pregnant. Today it doesn't apply. That doesn't mean the Torah is wrong. It means the facts changed. The human body changed. The world nature of the way they produce things, the way they added things to it. So things are different than it was in those days. So therefore, people need to follow Rabbi people halachically need to follow the eitzah of a doctor. I'll tell you, she even show you to an extent. In Rabbi Moshe Feinstein, there's a tshuva responses. Somebody asked him, there's when smoking came out that it's not healthy. In those years, when it came out that smoking is dangerous to your health. So they asked him a question, is it okay if you're a smoker for whatever reason, and somebody asks you for a cigarette? Are you allowed to give it to them? What was the question? If it's unhealthy to smoke and you're giving somebody a cigarette, you're helping them commit the sin of not taking care of your health. And he writes over there, you're really not allowed to give him a cigarette because it's proven, according to when he wrote what he did, even then, it was proven it's dangerous for your health. And if it's dangerous for your health, then you shouldn't give somebody a cigarette, even though he asks you for one. Or if somebody asks you to go buy a pack of cigarettes for him, whatever it may be. He maintains you're not allowed to because of science. If medical doctors today, and that's what you have to go by. If medical, and Torah relies on the opinions of doctors. By Yom Kippur, by health issues, Torah says you must rely on the opinion of doctors. So halachically, if a doctor says something is not healthy, you're not allowed to do it, technically. If a doctor says you're supposed to do it, then you do it. That's what halacha says. Okay, let's go to Tanya and to be continued.